Welcome to the February edition of the Hornet Spotlight. We thank you for joining us today as we finally begin to move out of the winter season, and hopefully we get a little nicer weather, a little warmer weather anyway. We look forward to the end of the sports seasons. The IHSA tournament series are underway for girls basketball and wrestling. It won't be long before swimming and boys basketball also have their tournaments. I know that we anticipate doing very well in all of our winter sports. We've had a great winter sports season. I think probably boys basketball stands out a little bit. Not only the varsity squad, I think they're winning at about a 75% clip. I think last look they were like 11-4. JV basketball is still undefeated. Freshman basketball has been beaten once, so the basketball has been very good. The girls basketball team, one of the favorites to win their sectional. Wrestling, as always, is very competitive. In the month of January, we moved 5 wrestlers from the sectional round to the regional round. And swimming, of course, won their 8th consecutive. The boys won their 8th consecutive conference championship under Coach Bush Collins. So another great winter sports season. And make sure you get in here and see how it all ends up. Check the girls out at Manual. Check the boys out at Perry. Check the boys basketball out. They still have games here and games on the road, but the sectional will be here this year at Beech Grove. So we want to pack that house. It should be a really, really competitive sectional this year with 3 extremely strong teams, including Beech Grove. We're here today to also recognize the Renaissance Committee's selection for the Alumnus of the Month for the month of February. And we picked up a member of the class of 1968. So we are in our do the math, 50th year. 50th year since this young man has been out of high school here at Beech Grove, but we are here to congratulate and welcome David Bogart.
Thank you, Randy.
Excuse me, congratulations for your selection as Alumni of the Month. 1968 was a pretty volatile year in the history of this country, and talking before we came on, you had to do some things that weren't very pleasant in that time, not by your own choosing necessarily. But let's go back before we talk about those types of things. Let's talk about Beech Grove High School in '68. Your class was the second class to go through the building. I think you had 2 complete years here, right?
Yes.
You started. So tell us a little bit about Beech Grove, the city of Beech Grove, what things were like here at the school, maybe some of the activities you were involved in, some of the teachers, some of the classes, anything that you remember from 50 years ago about the high school.
Some of my first memories were actually not really pleasant ones, because I transferred from Sharpton High School after my sophomore year, because I'm the second oldest of 10 kids, and my dad decided that he couldn't afford to pay that much tuition for Catholic school. So I came in my junior year, which in the teenage genre, that kind of throws you off because you're a stranger and this and that. But it was nice. The school, the school was good. I played, I wrestled and played baseball there, so I was ineligible here. So I went out for football, and I was like 5 foot tall in my junior year, and I played defensive lineman on the JV team. So that tells you how desperate they were. But all in all, I made some decent friends, and one name I will throw out there is Mr. McMorrow. Took me under his wing and guided me to deal with the controversies and the put downs and things like that, and I'll never forget him for that. And then Mr. Leffler was the AD at the time, and he was the same way. He really helped out and listened to my complaints and explained to me what I needed to do or what I could do. and I think that helped me, you know, throughout my life. Because when I graduated, I started working for back then it was the post office department. It was still a part of the government, and then that's when they had like you mentioned earlier, the nation was in turmoil over the Vietnam conflict. So they had the lottery for the draftees. Well, my older brother, who's a year older, and then I've got a brother that's a year younger, the three of us were in that lottery. And my birth date came up number 9, and my two brothers both were in college. I didn't go to college, obviously, because I started working for the post office, because I knew it'd just be a party for me. I was kind of the black sheep of the family, the older kids. So then I got drafted. I got inducted in January of 1970, and by May I was in Vietnam. You know, it was an experience. We'll leave that at that. But it was.
So you were a year out of high school, right? Or 2 years out.
Yeah, 2 years.
2 years out of high school.
Because when they had the lottery, it delayed it. I was actually supposed to get inducted like in '69, and then they decided to have this lottery system because they needed young men to.
Which branch of the service
go.
did you
I
serve
was drafted in the Army, U.S. Army, and then when I got over there, when we went to Fort Knox, Kentucky, it was full. So they bussed us to Fort Leonard Wood, Missouri, which we called it Fort Lost in the Woods because it wasn't a pleasant place, especially in the middle of the winter. And then from there, my advanced training, we got shipped to Fort Ord, California, which was an eye-opener because they were taking condemned signs off of barracks to put us in it. That's how bad it was, the war. And then from there, I had like a 5-day. I had 5 days to get to Seattle, Washington to ship over. So I came home, spent 4 or 5 days with the family, with my brothers and sisters, and then shipped over, and was stationed in the northern part of South Vietnam, which was what the military called I Corps. I was with the 101st Airborne, and was with a group called the Raider Force Recon. You know, it was a trip. It was an eye opener for a young man who grew up in Beech Grove and didn't see any violence or anything. You know, all of a sudden you're thrown into something like that at 19 years old. And I mean, you just have to imagine a bunch of 18 and 19-year-olds being thrown together and doing what we want. It was like, you know, some people think it was a big party and this and that, and it, you know, a lot of times it was just because that was just how you dealt with the stress. And then you know, when I came home from Vietnam, I spent like 4 or 5 months before I reclaimed my job at the post office, and it was, you know, we were treated badly. We were treated like criminals, so it was like you didn't want to tell anybody that you were over there and this and that. But that you know, caused me to kind of withdraw and not be real outgoing like I was when I was in school. But as my brothers and sisters came through Beech Grove, I started to come back, going to their sports events and things like that, and you know, that was one of the things that helped me out. And you know, just living in Beech Grove was a comforting thing to me. In fact, I moved back here I lived here till 77, 78, and then I moved back in 87 and haven't been here since. And no plans to leave. I love this community and just the peacefulness of it.
Your career postal worker, right?
Yes, 37 years.
37 years, and now retired.
Retired in 2006.
And but during that time, I don't know if they can see on camera or not. You got a shirt. You were and I'm an IHSA official, so I'm envious of your state championship shirt there. I've never got that. I got to semi-state, but I haven't made it to the state. You told me before we went on, you do a lot of officiating. You're very big into the associations now. But talk about, you are a softball official, and you're evidently a pretty darn good one because you worked 3 state finals, not just the one here, but 3 of them. Tell us a little bit about that. That's kind of cool. We don't hear about that often.
Yeah, I started out when my daughters was starting to play Little League. You know, they was like 7, 8 years old, and they had volunteer officials. So they asked me to go out there and officiate. And I was doing baseball and softball at the time. And just, like I said, just as a volunteer, just as some dad that needed something to do instead of sitting on them hard bleachers. And then, some guy came up and said, "Hey, I'm a high school official. I work for IHSA." He said, "Did you ever think about doing this for pay?" And I'm like, "What? You can get paid for this?" So that was in '87, and that's when I got started. And then I kind of dropped baseball just for the fact was when I saw the boys teams got their new uniforms and everything, and they took their old uniforms and brought them over and handed them to the girls, and it just, that kind of didn't sit well with me. So I just decided, I said, I'm going to just stick with softball, and then see where that goes. And I had a lot of good people. You being an official know that you have good veteran officials that help you out, and I just was lucky enough to have the right people push me the right way, and had a decent eye apparently. But
to get to state finals probably a little better than decent.
But I enjoyed it, and then yeah, and it was. I worked a national college Christian Athletic Association national championships in '96, which was exciting. That was up in Indiana Wesleyan, and got to work that. That was fun. And then with USA ASA softball, which was the main training source back when I started, and they were they did all the training of officials and this and that. And I worked 7 national championships for them. And then I was invited to work at the 2001 Police and Fire Games that was held here in Indianapolis. I worked softball in that also. So I've had an exciting career. And then in I think it was '97 or '98, the gentleman that ran the softball association decided he had enough and just kind of threw it in my lap. So I've been running it since '97, and right now I have a base of like 275 officials. I assign for 83 schools, middle schools and high schools here in the state for their season. And then I was named the premier girls fast pitch umpire in chief for the state of Indiana. And we handle tournaments for there. Like we have a big one, they call it the Firecracker. It's played at Westfield, up Grand Park in Westfield, and then they use Noblesville, Ben Davis, and out at Claremont. So I'll have 24 fields going that I'll be responsible for getting umpires on. And that keeps me busy.
I was going to say, that doesn't sound like retirement as I know it.
Well, but it's something I enjoy.
That's the main thing. As long as you're having fun, you're active. Of all the games you've called and seen, anything stick out to you? I mean, I would think the state championship game should be big. What sticks out to you in all the work you've done?
My last state championship was one of the most exciting games that I'd ever officiated, and it was, for one, it's a state championship, and no matter what level it is, it was good. But we had it was Lutheran and Riverton Park, which had 2 of the top pitchers in the state, and it was, the pitchers were both nervous. Of course I was nervous, always am. If you don't get butterflies before a game, you don't need to be officiating. I mean, that's what I always tell people. But yeah, there was a run scored at the top of the first inning, and after that it was just I just sat behind the plate and raised my arm up calling strikes because the pitchers were so good. But that was a game that just I'll never forget it.
And now, as an assigner, you said 83 schools and 250 officials? Is
Yes.
basically what you're responsible. Do you find over the years, if I heard you right, you've been doing that for 15, 20 years.
20 years
20
I've been
years?
running the association.
Do you have problems finding officials for softball? Is that a number? I know we talked earlier, we're both football officials, and I know football officials are hard to find. Is the same thing true with softball?
Oh, it is. It is. And most of the officials, unfortunately, like myself, I started when I was almost 40 years old. Mm-hmm. We don't have any young officials. If you look at most of the officials, they're all, my age, and we're not going to last forever. We need to get some of these young people out there, and that's part of it.
And that's something maybe our kids would need to hear, because athletics are huge here.
Yeah.
We talked, and I believe it's 18 years old to be an official.
18 for IHSA.
Yeah, for
now,
IHSA.
I run the summer tournaments and everything I run. There's not an age group.
It's not a bad way to make a little money during college too. I mean, I know guys get started in college and something like that.
But no, it's at the high school level. They're paying we go by the Marion County Athletics Association. That's what I base my umpires' pay, what I ask the schools to pay them on that. But they're getting paid $62 a piece, for a softball game, mm-hmm. which is, if you break it down, that's some pretty good hourly money.
Not bad. And if you spend a Saturday doing a tournament, you can get 3 or 4
games in a day.
Yep. What would you say to a kid here in our school that's getting ready, a senior in our high school? They may be basketball, football, soccer, to encourage them to get into that, because I know the IHSA is always looking for officials.
Yeah, that's the hard thing, is just getting, because at that age most of them are still wanting to play.
Yeah, that's true.
And not officiate, so it's tough to do. To get the young people out there to go, I really don't know, because they just have too many things on their plates. As you get older, you kind of back off and everything. Because when I first got out of high school, it was the same way. I was out playing softball and basketball and romping around and this and that. So it's just you didn't have time to actually study a rule book or go through mechanics of things and this and that. So hopefully, and I've had a lot of officials have thanked me as they've progressed up the road, but up the ladder is the training of them and the mentality and the one of the hardest things to teach them is that you're the peacemaker on the field. So if something happens, you can't attack or overreact. You have to stay calm and level-headed.
Yeah, there's more to it than people realize, I think. People like to sit there and yell at you, but they don't get it. They don't understand all the preparation and everything you have to control and think about, especially when you're back behind home plate. That's a thankless job. Again, we have been with David Bogard, class of 1968. David, this is 2 months in a row, back to back. We had the Akers brothers. We had Steve Akers last month, who joins his brother in the Hall of Fame, and you join your brother Steve in the Hall of Fame.
Yes.
So we now have 2 Bogards. We have 2 Akers. So I think from talking to Steve, there's better chance to have a 3rd Bogart than there is Akers. But because you mentioned you're the second oldest
of 10.
Are you the only one still here in Beech Grove, or?
Yes.
You're the only one still with us.
There's 6 of us still on the south side of
in
Greenwood and south side of Indianapolis, but yeah, I'm the only one actually still in Beech Grove.
Well, we appreciate you hanging with us, and on behalf of the Renaissance Committee, I would like to thank you for taking time out, coming down, joining us today, and becoming a member of the Alumni Hall of Fame. We thank you very much and appreciate all the work you do for kids in this state, either directly when you were working on the field and indirectly now as you work with all the officials that will spend a lot of time out there with them this spring and summer and fall.
Yeah, it's quite an honor.
Thank you very much.
I am honored.
Join us next month when we will have our March recipient of the Alumni Hall of Fame Award. And until then, hopefully we'll still have some athletics going on, but if not, we'll be ushering in the spring seasons and getting close to the big day in May, graduation, and that's what we're all getting geared for, and we're looking forward to that. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next month on the Hornet Spotlight.